still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright when the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us red. What time you said is coming over you. You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. To fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taken on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all.
Welcome to NUFC Matters. It is a pre-recorded show with me and Joe Allon, and a tweet that was put out by Tom Talks Tyne on X led me to come up with an idea for a show which is a little bit different for me and Joe. And it's something which has been thrown on Joe at the last minute, so I'm going to guide him through it. Joe's got an opinion about Newcastle United players, just like I have. So we are going to look at the players who are at the club, who've had a great season. No matter where we finish, we've won a trophy. We will have qualified for some type of European football this season, which, let's face it, was the end goal. So we're just going to go through the squad, the players, and between me and Joe, talk about the players that we think maybe have got a future at the club, maybe will stay for another couple of seasons. Some, of course, have already been up at new contracts, and maybe some players who maybe it is time to move on. And maybe if we've got time as well, just talk a little bit about where we should strengthen from Joe's perspective. But we'll start with the goalkeepers, Joe. And Nick Pope has been our number one. Obviously, Eddie had a huge decision to make in the cup final. Dubravka had been playing. He brought Nick Pope in, but despite the criticism Nick Pope gets, the kick-in, of course, has been something which people have criticised in his time at the club. His diving was questioned a little bit earlier in the season when he came back from that injury. But from my perspective, does he stay at the club or does he go? And a lot's going to depend on whether we go out, I guess, and sign a keeper. There's been a lot talked about with James Trafford. Of course, Burnley promoted now, a Premier League club. Will that change Burnley's mind, or will Burnley up the price? Is there a sentimental return for Pope to Burnley? Of course, as part of a deal. Who knows? But I mean, you've scored plenty of goals past goalkeepers, Joe. You know what goalkeepers are all about. You've seen Nick Pope at close hand this season at St James's Park. What's your feelings on Nick Pope? Should he still be our number one next season? Would you like to see somebody come in and put him under pressure? what's your feelings on the goalkeeping situation at Newcastle this summer?
Well, Steve, at the end of the day, right, you've got to say that they've done admirably well this season. But when you've got two good goalkeepers and you've got Nick Pope, he's obviously had the shirt for the majority of times because even when he's come back after injury, he gets the shirt apart from that spell that Dubravka got. But in that spell, Martin Dubravka was outstanding, in my opinion, you know. We went on an unbelievable run and he didn't deserve to lose a jersey for me. But the good thing at a football club is to have two good goalkeepers battling for that number one shirt. And we were blessed that the fact that even after Pope's injury, that Martin Dubravka came in, the gauntlet was certainly thrown at him. And did he take it in goalkeeper's turns? He took it with both hands, you know. So one, and first and foremost, and this is going to be the order of the day, and I'll not get sick of saying it, that Newcastle United squad has not been one good enough for a big, massive reason, and that is the fact that their numbers compared to most of the Premier League clubs are so weak and down. When you get 2 or 3 injuries, whoever you've got, there's not enough players at the football club to rotate. Like other clubs have this absolute, endless pot of players, if you like. Whereas we're scratching, to put anybody on the bench where you think, is somebody that's going to come off that bench going to affect the game? That's what you need, a substitute. That was probably, the first thing that you're looking at as a manager. You're thinking, I know the way they think, if something goes wrong, what am I going to do to change it? And when you look at the bench, we've had it, and not an embarrassment of riches, shall we say, because with a squad that is so thin, and it's thin where every position, you can get covered, and you're going to have long-term injuries as well at the football club, because that is just part and parcel of professional football, But by not recruiting in the areas when you've got the chance to bring players in, transfer deadlines, God, the recruitment side of things has got to be put into place where if a player goes out of the club, you have to have the player all ready to come into the club that's going to better that position. Nick Pope at the minute with Dubravka. Okay, if it has to stay like that, I'm having Nick Pope in and I'm having him working as the goalkeeping coach, or get a goalkeeping coach. We've got Stephen Harper at the football club. There's nobody knows goalkeeping more than Stephen Harper. You've got Shea Given, who would probably give his right hand to get involved by doing some sort of goalkeeping coaching. You're talking about players at the club, past players that absolutely adore this club and bleed black and white, So they've got to be working on the weaknesses. So Pope, it's his kicking and his crossing, man. He's got to be able to take the pressure off defenders by coming for crosses. He's a massive unit. Goalkeepers get looked after, even in this day and age. It's even more. Half the people on the pitch think tackle's fishing gear. You're not allowed to touch anybody. You're not allowed to get any aggression against anybody. If you swear at somebody now, I think they have to go to church and put 6 Hail Marys and 3 Our Fathers in. It's unbelievable when you look at the way I'm watching a game over the years. This new refereeing VAR thing, and I'm watching the reruns that's happened in this season. And Michael Owen's on talking about a foul on a Liverpool player, where I think it was the Everton guy Tarkowski. It was a few months ago now, and he's went in and he's played the tackle, and I've went, oh, good tackle. He's got the ball 150%. He's got the ball, but that thing that growing up as a kid, Big Jack, my manager at Newcastle United. You can commit murder when the ball's there. Win the ball, but you can commit murder. I've been watching some of the 70s and the 80s games, and I was thinking, whoa, that's a bit rough, that. And then I was watching the 80s and 90s games, and I was thinking, whoa, how did he get away with that? And then I was thinking, Christ, that was my career in them eras. Did that go on? And, you know what? It was part and parcel of football. It was great. You get injured and whatever, but you know what? It's swings and roundabouts, you know, and it's give and take, you know. And some of the injuries, the worst injuries that you get as a professional footballer, is when you're training with your best mates. You know, I could be in the car with somebody, my best mate that's taking us to training. He's in my position. And the first chance I get, I'm going to absolutely clobber him, you know. And I'm going to do that because I want my shirt back, and I want to tell the manager and show my passion, whatever way, whether it's right or wrong, how much I want that shirt. And that's got to mean something, you know. So when you're going to work every day as a professional footballer, I'm not saying, "Hi, Steve, did you enjoy shopping with the missus? What did you do, Metrocentre? Oh, have a nice time. Oh, and you had a meal, did you? Good, aye, great. Oh, what did you go to the park afterwards? Oh, lovely. I'm glad you. Oh, look, Billy, you went to Seaside, did you? You had a nice time, man. Do you think that goes on in the dressing room? Absolute holics, rubbish. You know, you're getting in there. It's industrial because it's industrial language, because football is a working man's sport, man.
Yeah.
We're all working men, you know. So when you get in there and you get in the dressing room, you get in the training ground, you're grafting. That's your job. My job was to get a shirt, you know, and I would do anything I could to get it. So getting back to the goalkeepers, if they haven't got somebody in place, and we can all say about the ifs and the maybes about Trafford, do you think Burnley Football Club are going to get rid of the goalkeeper that's probably been the best goalkeeper in the league this season because of the run of clean sheets that Burnley have had in that championship, which is the hardest league to get out of in the country? They're not going to get rid of that lad. They're going to be wanting to bring somebody else in. And the money that they've got now will enable that to happen because of these payments by getting into the Premier League now. It's astronomical. Burnley Football Club and Leeds United, by being promoted, have won the pools.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I mean, that's what they say. The playoff game's like the £150 million game as well. You know, so whoever comes up in the playoffs is that. So goalkeepers, you wouldn't be bothered if it was those two. I've got to be honest, if it was Pope and Dubravka next season, I wouldn't be too bothered. It does sound as if Trafford's going to come to Newcastle, give them a bit of competition. We do have other keepers signed on the bench. This is an enigma. I don't think we'll ever understand this. It had to have been a PSR signing. Chakademus and Pliers. I don't know whether we'll ever see him play. He may
That's
be
your
one
best
of those
line, that one. I love that line when you say that.
He may be one of those players who he could be like Yankuba Minte. We'll never see him play in the first team, and unfortunately for him, he goes with our blessings, and hopefully he can take that pink strip with him. But we'll move on. Let's move on to the defenders, Joe.
Apparently, he had a bad back for half the season, Steve, because when he was not playing in the team, he was having to pick his money up that he was getting off the football club.
Classic. Other players, let's go to the back four. Now, listen, we're blessed at the minute because two players who won't be going anywhere. One who we wish a swift recovery, and he's back for the start of the season. Young Lewis Hall, Newcastle fan at heart, London born and bred. But being a star player this season, would have been certainly knocking on the door for player of the season, I think, had he not got that injury just before the Carabao Cup final. A cruel blow for him. He deserved to play in the final, a lad. The man who came in and filled his boots, though, who had been doing admirably well on the right-hand side, and play both sides, we can see that now. Tino Livramento, who himself had a bad injury to cope with prior to coming to Newcastle when he was at Southampton. No doubt about it, Newcastle have got England's two fullbacks there for, certainly two players who will be knocking on the manager's door, Thomas Tuchel's door for the fullbacks job. So I think fullback-wise, as far as starters, we're fine. We've got a bit of backup in that department. First of all, Matt Targett. In that relegation season, that season where Eddie Howe came in, he was my favourite player, Joe. I've always loved defenders. I've always liked a good defender. I grew up with the likes of, Johnny Anderson, and he played it the old-fashioned way. Even in times of struggle, we've always had a decent fullback, somebody who could put somebody into row Z as well as the ball. Now, Matt Target came in that season, turned, you know, he turned his nose up at other deals, came to Newcastle, much like Kieran Trippier did. He had a great season. Unfortunately, been blighted a little bit with injury and not had the opportunities to flourish maybe like others. So I've got to be honest, I'm not sure what happened with Matt Target in the summer. A good servant. Similarly, somebody else coming towards the end of their time on Newcastle is this guy. And I mean, some people out there will be going, well, who is it? It's Jamal Lewis. It's Jamal Lewis, somebody who came to the club come with a lot of promise. Is it time for these two guys to probably look for pastures new, do you think, Joe? And you know, he's been a good left back for us. He's been a good servant, Matt Target. Unfortunately for Jamal Lewis, things just haven't worked out, and it sometimes happens in football.
Well, it's a business at the end of the day, Steve, you know. And the fact about Matt is, has he still got the desire, right? He's a good lad. He's a good player, you know. Has he got the desire? Has he got the, you know, the ambition still to play at the top level? Because he hasn't played enough games for himself. You know, he'll know that. But he loves being at the football club. And like you say, he's a top pro. And it's not any fault of his own that he's not in the side, you know. But at the same time, has he got the ambition to move on? And what does anybody want him? I liken him a little bit to Elliot Anderson, you know. And Elliot Anderson, he didn't have much choice, I wouldn't have thought, in the move to Nottingham Forest. But at the same time, the boy was a really, really good player. We know how good of a player he was. We know how much he loves the football club. But he did have to move because of financial things. And the fact is, though, he's playing for a team that, you know, been vying all season in that top four. And it's been a good move for him. And he's done really, really well at Nottingham Forest. Is that a one that we're going to regret by leaving for a paltry sum? You started off with the two fullbacks first and foremost. I mean, when they came, Steve, I was like probably most Newcastle supporters. I was a bit sceptical. 50 million for two kids like that. I can eat my words, certainly. I mean, I'm not being funny, but the pair of them have got a chance. I know there's good players in the England setup, the Skellys at Arsenal and what have you. But you know what? That fullback position, hey, it's up for grabs in my eyes, because I could see Skelly playing in a more forward role for England. I could see him because he does his best work attacking. You know, like the old-fashioned, what they brought in, I see old-fashioned now. Everybody, I wouldn't know what the formations are nowadays, Steve, but I would put him as a wing-back role, you know, that's Skelly. Whereas our two boys, that cost 50 million quid, you can double or treble that quite easily, you know, because they are going to be the backbone of this club, you know, for years and years to come. And they're still learning the game, Steve, man. I look at them still, and I still think, you know, even they haven't. Do you know when we were kids, and you know more than us because you're 8'6", but when I was 5'6", right, when me and Pedro were 5'6", I moved to 5'10". Pedro went to 5'8". You went to 19'3", right? When we were 18, Pedro stopped at 5'6". I went to 5'10.5", and that's the way I stopped. You went like the Jolly Green Giant, getting all the roles in your acting stuff in pantomime. And what a great actor you are as well, by the way. But the fact is that they had, I think, through this season, growth spells in the positions that they played. Tino Livramento, in the latter half of the season, when Harvey Bonds got in the team because of Anthony Gordon's red card, I've got to say it was an injury afterwards. I'm sure it was the England, the hip thing, you know, and I'm sure Anthony Gordon doesn't want to miss games. But Harvey Bonds did take his chance at that time. And the link-up player with Livramento on that left-hand side, Livramento going on overlaps that weren't just looking good on the telly, overlaps that were creating goals, creating chances, you know, and they were working on that left-hand side as well, with a little bit of Joe Linton hiding, with a little bit of aggression and a little bit of a Tenali sweeping up around the back, thinking, right, if that falls down, I'm there. And that's the way we were rolling at that time, when we had them two massive spells of the 6 games at the end of the season. And I think off the top of my head, because them six games that we won there, that included, right? That 6 games of unbeaten was unchanged teams. I think we won a trophy. Oh, yeah. Did I say that we won a trophy? Did I say that would shut people up for the 70 years domestically and the 50 years for a cup? Oh, and by the way, some of the critics and the pundits they're mourning a bit because a month ago that we won a trophy and we're going on about it. Because you know what? We'll be shouting from the rooftops and ramming it down the throats. Because you know what? For the last 50 years, all we've heard is they're never the bride, they're the bridesmaid. And yeah, I don't know what finger it is. I'll use that one. Anyway, to them, that's what I'm saying. And the fact that we buried that ghost in that run, and it was because, you're seeing Livermore adapting to that position. I'm not thinking, whoa, he's gone left back here. What we're going to do here? How we're going to be on here with him? And he went in there and he was professional. But did he look out of place? Did he? Heckers, he was absolutely outstanding, and in his form when you have a look playing both sides of the pitch, because bearing in mind, he had to take Kieran Trippier's shirt off him to begin with, and he got in, and when Tino Livramento got that shirt, he kept it on merit. You can say that he's had a couple of iffy games and what have you, but the professional footballers, the human beings, that's going to happen, Yeah. So on them too, definitely, as a force to be reckoned with. And you know what? I eat my words. I'm a fan at the end of the day, thinking, why are we buying people? I think it was so much for me was, why are we paying 50 million quid? Because we should be having them coming through the youth setup, because you know how much I feel about that and how strong I feel about breeding within. We have to get players through. We've got to get players through the system. They've got to be coming through that academy. There's got to be some place for them players to play, whether it's getting a reserve team back or what have you, but there has to be places so they can show the manager they're not on the door and they want to get into that first team. Because if I'm coming in training every day and I haven't got a carrot to aim for as a professional footballer, I might as well stay at home and watch this morning. I mean, that Richard Madeley's still on it. You watch it. Is he still on it? That Richard Madeley. I can't stand him, man.
He's like Roger Melly.
Newcastle were playing in the League Cup final. He's on the day before. He went, oh, who are Liverpool playing in the cup final? Is he all eating a napper? Richard Madeley.
Centre halves were blessed. Sven Botman, again, blighted by injury, but he's going to be an important player for us in the coming seasons. I've got no doubt about that. Big Dan Byrne, well, he's from Blythe, and we know Big Dan is he's part of the fixtures and fittings at St James's Park at the moment, and I'm hoping will be for many a long year. I'm sure we all know, when there's a bit of pace, Dan is never going to be able to compete with the quickest of quickest, but it's the way you set up as a team really, which can overcome problems like that. Dan Byrne's got more than enough to get us through forthcoming seasons. The player, obviously, who's just been offered a new one-year deal is Fabian Schär. Again, for me, somebody who, listen, his record speaks for itself. His goals as a centre-half speak for themselves. I think finding an upgrade for Fabian Schär is very important, but I still think with European football next season, we have to keep a hold of these players. And that's why another year extension for Fabian Schär is very, very important. We need a big squad. It's where we fell down flat on our face last time. So that leads to the question I'm going to ask Joe now, and that's about Kieran Trippier, because I guess at the start of the season, we all know, we don't need to go into it. It's between him and his, him and his family. There was personal issues that were causing an issue for poor Kieran. He had, he had a lot on his mind. He had a lot on his plate. And as often does, people do forget these people are human. And people can say they get paid vast amounts of money, etc. Yeah, they do, but they're still human and can still be affected by what's going on off the pitch. But the second half of the season, Kieran really has led by example. He's been a great captain on the pitch, in the dressing room, and he's been back to his best. And there's been some wonderful football played over the last couple of months, and he's been at the centre of it with alongside the likes of Sandro Tonali, etc. Obviously, a couple of transfer windows have passed. Rumours of him potentially going away to different clubs. The question to you, Joe, is would you offer him another extension? Would you try, if you were Eddie Howe, would you try and persuade Kieran Trippier to maybe that his future lies on Tyneside for at least another year?
Definitely that. You've just said it for me. You offer him the year, Steve. Kieran Trippier is a good pro. He's not a fool. If somebody else comes in and offers him shed loads of money at this stage in his career, hey, I'm not messing about. He's leaving. Two ways about it. But to keep him at the club with that little, we've got him on a piece of string sort of thing still. Does Kieran Trippier, does he enhance our football club? One word, yes. Simple as that. Yes. Kieran Trippier, we can talk all about his attributes, and to come through his personal problems, and it's horrible when you get personal problems in any way, shape or form, and in any walk of life. Footballers, like you just said, Steve, are no different, mate. They're no different than anybody else, right? But the fact is, he's still professional enough to go on about his job and doing it to the best of his ability. I think Newcastle United have been a better side wherever he's played Kieran Trippier by him being in the team because of his leadership, because of the other thing that I think he enhances more than any other player at Newcastle United is his dead ball situation. The way that he can strike a football, put it in an area, and this is the thing about you practice. He hasn't practiced this for 5 minutes. He's done this. How old is he now? 46. How old is he, Kieran? I mean, he's done it since he was 5.
Mid-30s, I think now.
Right. So since he was 5 or 6, he's played football.
Yeah.
Right. He's practiced kicking that football his way for that length of time in his life, for 30 years. Like David Beckham. You didn't think David Beckham just turned up in Man United, put that strip on with his blonde hair, pulled the bird out the crowd, who could sing a bit, and he gets the ball on the halfway line and knocks it 500 yards over the top of the Hans Seegers for them to score 1-0 and all that carry on. He's practiced that every single day of his life. You're going against the wall. You always laugh about me and jumpers for goalposts. I played in the streets. I played street football. We weren't allowed to get on the grass. One, it was somebody's grass that was going to get cut. And two, if I got green on my trousers, which I only had 2 pair, my mother couldn't get them out in the washing. I was going to school with green stains all over my trousers. So I played on the streets. I played in the garages. I played on the, practiced against walls. All these people might think, oh, that's so romantic how they did that. They did it because we had no bloody choice. If you wanted to play football and you wanted to practice and your mate next door wasn't coming out, just because Tommy wasn't coming out because his mother wouldn't let him because somebody bloodied his nose in a scrap, right? He wasn't allowed to come out, so is he going to stop me from playing football? I had my best mate in the world. I had the wall. I was playing football against the wall. I thought the wall was my other brother I didn't have. Unbelievable. So Kieran Trippier, his craft, the way that he strikes that football, no other player at the club can do that. Not on a regular, his turnaround. Yeah. His stats and putting it on a sixpence. So yes, Kieran, you've got to offer him that contract because we've got the boys there. But you know what? If something goes wrong, do you want to treat Kieran Trippier? I'll get his name right tonight. And I'm chewing gum and all. I forgot, sorry. But Kieran Trippier, you want him at your football club as long as we can have him.
100%. We'll both agree on that. And as I say, this is all about opinion on NUFC matters. And this certainly is, it's a positive.
I know what you used to say to me, Steve. You've got your opinion, but you're definitely in the top one.
Last defender to talk about is the captain, the club captain, Jamal Lascelles. This guy is a great athlete. He's certainly been a huge influence in the dressing room. Been very unfortunate to be out such a long time with a cruciate ligament, very much like Sven Botman. How he returns, I'm not sure. Huge question mark over this one for me, Joe. I know there's no room for sentimentality, but does he maybe look at this and say another year extension for him as well? Or bearing in mind as well, depending on which European trophy we're playing in, it depends on what kind of player you need. Homegrown players, this, that, and the other. Jamal Lascelles, of course, not a homegrown player. But what I'm saying is, European competition, which one you end up in will have a big say as, I guess, how we build the squad, But would you give Lascelles another year? Is he worth another year? Bearing in mind, you've got Byrne, you've got Shaw. If we give Trippier one, I guess, but is Lascelles one potentially who could be waving a sentimental goodbye to Newcastle in the summer?
Well, my first sentence was going to be there's no sentiment in sentimentality,
Yeah.
And the fact is, Jamal himself, if he's wanting to play games at this football club, it's not going to be this football club. I think everybody's forgetting that we were going to shatter the record for a centre off that we tabled a supposedly 70 million quid bid for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said his name again. But the fact is, I'm looking at the board, I'm looking at the owners, and I'm wanting to know why we're not signing another 70 million centre half for next season, for this season coming up. I want to know why, because we need that centre half. We need Virgil van Dijk. We need all that type of player, the leaders and what have you. And that's because I want Newcastle United to be the best team in Europe. Whatever competition we qualify for, I want them to be the best team in Europe. And to do that, you have to have the best players. And to move on, them best players, they start. And then the other players that we've mentioned that are at the club, they know they've got to fight for the place. But if there's an injury, you've got players there where what I talked about earlier when we started is having that block of players that, all right, every one of them might not enhance what's going to happen in the game, or they're not going to affect it, but they might affect it, which they will do, by being 100% committed and being able to take the shirt over from the player that's coming off. And there's where you get your Shaws, your Trippiers. Big Dan, if he starts, if he doesn't, it's up to Dan. Hey, Dan's got the shirt at the minute. You know what I mean? You can talk about the sentimentality with Dan Burn, but Dan Burn, he'll fight tooth and nail to keep his shirt, mind.
Yeah, he will. Whoever
comes in, by the way, you can see back in the 80s when I played in the dressing rooms, staying in the bloody training ground. Dan Burn will not relinquish that shirt.
No.
But at the end of the day, this is all the great thing where you've got 8 or 9 in the bench. I mean, I don't even know how many substitutes they've got these days, Steve. I don't know what the rule is.
Yeah, seven subs, I think it is nowadays, and it's incredible because you see them all warming
up. But there's different rules. Is it not different rules if somebody guns off for a head injury and he guns off for a head injury, bring him back on and do this and do that?
It was so much easier when there was one sub, Joe.
Well, I know, because I knew I was the only one that was going to get left out. I didn't win all my millions by my appearance money on football clubs I played for.
Let's move up to your neck of the woods in your side of the pitch, your half. Up in the top half, and we're going to go with the midfielders. Now we're blessed, aren't we? We've got the best midfield 3 in the Premier League. We've got Sandro Tonali, who has been sublime, silly, stupid, whatever you want to call him this season. He has literally set the Premier League alight this season, and of course the Carabao Cup. And he's made it look so easy. And he's a young lad, and he's got the world at his feet. There's no doubt about it. Sandro Tonali has been a revelation, and that little switch that he made between him and Bruno Guimaraes, the club captain, the team captain now, has really changed our fortunes. And Bruno, certainly one of those big names that came in that early part of the takeover has shone again this season. Question marks aplenty over him replacing Kieran Trippier as the captain on the pitch, but he's captained a team to its first trophy in many a year, so he has done well. And the enforcer, the Patrick Vieira of this Newcastle United team, of course, is Joe Linton. He's Brazilian. He only cost 40 million. And there was a player in there, Steve Bruce said, well, Eddie Howe found him and brought him out. And that three have been superb this season. And I've got no doubt that they will be superb again next season. There has been other players who've been in the team this season and played like a bit part, supporting role, I guess. Anthony Gordon, superb last season. This season probably had, what by his own standard he's probably described as a little bit of a hit and miss season, and obviously cost himself his place in the final. Sending off, much like it happened to Nick Pope a couple of seasons ago. He was, replaced by Harvey Barnes, who Joe was talking about players coming in and taking their chances. Well, Harvey Barnes has done exactly that. He's come in. His assists have been good, but he's also scored a lot of goals. And Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon, I'm sure, will play big parts next year. The players who haven't really had much of a chance this year, either through injury or through the fact that they just can't get past that three in midfield and the two wingers who played well, have been Joe Willock, Lewis Miley, and local lad Sean Longstaff. Those are the three I'm going to focus on. And don't forget, I haven't forgotten Darren's favourite player off the fans forum, Jacob Murphy, of course, Ballon d'Or future winner. Jacob Murphy, with the amount of assists he's had this season, he's chasing Mo Salah's tail at this very moment in time. Yeah, Jacob Murphy, absolutely superb season for him this season. But we're going to focus on the three who, maybe fortunes might change, maybe they won't. I'm going to start with Lewis Miley, local lad. Obviously came in, did, a boy doing a man's job, if you like, Joe, when Newcastle were really struggling with suspensions and injuries last season. Then had a bit of an injury, which he's recovered from. You know what? When he's come in this season, he's done his bit. Still a young lad, still improving all the time. Some people saying he should go out on loan. Joe, I wouldn't do that. I would keep him in the team, in the squad, be part of it. And because Newcastle are in Europe next season, he's going to have games to play. And like Jacob Murphy, like Harvey Barnes, when he gets an opportunity, which he surely will, I'm sure he'll grab it with both hands, Joe, like you did when you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Lewis, it's funny because I went to a Hartlepool United Gateshead game at the back end of last season, and Lewis was behind us in the crowd, and he was there watching his brother Jamie play, another ex-Newcastle United player. And there was a guy there, and he's come in between me and Lewis, and we waved, I didn't know the lad and whatever, and I have no idea if he knew that I'd played football. But the lad that was sitting next to us, he's be about, I would have said, late 40s, so his son would have been, I don't know, 13, 14. He was corpus mentis as regarding known players of a certain era. And he turned around and he went, there's Lewis Miley. He plays for Newcastle. And the kid went, he's played such and such games. He scored 2 goals. His first goal was this one. And he rattled the stats out like that. And he said, but that's Joe. He said he played with, remember Newcastle when they had the good team? He played with Peter Beardsley and Paul Gascoigne. And the young one looked at me and went, sick. So, describing Tonali, right? Describing Bruno and Big Joe, I'm going to say, Steve, they're sick, man. So that's the word I would describe them. Bearing in mind, getting back to Lewis, because I do go on a tangent. He's got to be kept at the football club because he is homegrown. Because not only that, it's not a sentimental job of keeping Lewis Miley at the club. He has got the chance to be a superstar. I'm not joking. The more chances he's get, the better he'll get. But again, this is where Lewis Miley doesn't want to be playing in under 23 games. They need to have a reserve side that they can push them in, like you're playing against other professionals from other football clubs. They've got that much money, Steve. Why do they not do it?
I know.
Why do they not do it? You know, there's no reason why Newcastle United, with the way the pitches are as well, you get 15,000 at the reserve games, seeing some of the players.
It should happen.
Of course it should happen, man. They're bonkers.
And it's a wonder.
They're off the napper.
It's a wonder with the way they go on with money in PSR that it hasn't been thought of and brought in as a different type of league. You know, that kind of football would be fantastic. You're all going up on a tangent. I want to ask you about this guy, another local lad, a local hero, Sean Longstaff. Great servant, and somebody who's done his bit. Opportunities been few and far between. Where do you see his future, Joe? Linked heavily with a move away from the club in the summer. Do you think this will be the summer that we'll see him leave?
Well, it'll be the club's choice, Steve. I mean, I was at his game where he got his 200th appearance for the football club this season, and I had a little tear in my eye because Sean epitomises what it's all about to be Newcastle United. He's a great player. He's a great lad on and off the park. He comes from a great family. He's got heritage in his family. His dad was the most capped ice hockey player that's ever played for Great Britain. He's an absolute legend, his dad, Davy Longstaff. His uncle's Alan Thompson. Sport's in his blood, but winning is in his blood. Tomo was started at Newcastle United. Tomo went on to play Celtic and Aston Villa. He played glorious times in Europe and what have you. Sean Longstaff's carrying on that trilogy, and Sean's another player that we haven't had a need for him as regarding a starting line, but when he's come in, he's always made a difference. I'm going to take you back to Nottingham Forest, the League Cup game away. You were at the match, Steve. Sean Longstaff was the best player on the pitch for me, and he was instrumental because you know why? He's the best player on the pitch because he scored the penalty that probably got us through. Yeah. Without that, and without him being at the club, they say ifs and buts and cups are won at Wembley and all that. Cups aren't won at Wembley. Anybody would remembered if we get knocked out at the City Ground against Notts Forest, by the way, if Longstaff didn't score that penalty.
100%.
You see the way Eddie Howe grabbed him at the end of the game and told him whatever he was whispering in his ear, like, I wish he would whisper into mine. Because I tell you what, that was magic. And Sean Longstaff getting that 200th appearance, he gives 200%. Yeah. He might be good, he might be bad, but you know what he always gives? 200%. He bleeds black and white.
Okay, just before we get to the forwards, just Joe Willock in and out with injury, and maybe somebody who potentially could leave in the summer. Lots of people talking about PSR still haunting Newcastle. Again, for me, I think Joe Willock still has a part to play at St James's Park. I think on his day, he gives us something different. And, I think maybe he could be a very important player moving forward next season. So I wouldn't like to see Joe Willock leave. I think we've got to build the team around players like that. And our aim, I guess, Joe, next season and subsequent seasons is to have 2 11s and be able to rotate the squad, which is something that we haven't been able to do this season.
Right. So Joe Willock, right, injury or not, I'm going to tell you a little story because I can. I've just been watching the Everton documentary about Howard Kendall, Howard's Way, born in the Northeast, brilliant manager for Everton Football Club. But they went through the players that he had when they were really successful as a football team in the 80s. There's a player called Alan Harper, right? You'll not remember him, I wouldn't have thought. But I remember him because of one reason. Every time I played against whatever club Alan Harper played for, we were both sub together. So when he was at Liverpool Reserve, he played for Liverpool, started at Liverpool. He was one sub in them days, Liverpool Reserves at Anfield. I'm playing for Newcastle, one sub in the big reserve team. I was 16. And me and him are on the bench together. He goes to Everton. I'm obviously getting further along in my career. And I'm playing in the first team at Newcastle United when he's playing in. Well, I'm not playing in the first team. I was on the bench, sorry. And he's at Everton, and he's on the bench. And I'm thinking, are you haunting me? And then in this television programme, Steve, he played for Everton, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12. He never played 9. All them shirts he put because he was so adaptable, and the word that haunted his career and what got his career was versatility. And Joe Willock, I see, is that versatile player, because Joe Willock can play and link up the midfield to the forward player. He can go up front and give Isaac a hand if he wants. He can play wide. And he's only failing, if it is a failing, is his versatility. And Joe Willock must stay at the football club. Joe Willock is a very, very competent footballer.
Let's move up front then. Alexander Isak doing the business as usual for club and country. Another wonderful, wonderful season for our talisman. Not as many injuries this season either, which has been a blessing. And, Eddie, I think, and his coaching staff and, the medics as well, the likes of Bunt who came in, to help things along, have certainly got the best out of Alexander Isak this year. Pity we couldn't say the same for this man. Callum Wilson struggled a lot, not through his own choice either. He's been injured, sadly, and sometimes Father Time catches up with you. Callum Wilson is being a hell of a servant again for Newcastle United, and for me, it would be great if we could just see one last season from him. But I fear the worst with Callum. I think maybe we might see the back of him, depending if Newcastle can bring anybody in, and also I guess depending on the development of this young man, William Osula, or Osula, as many of us refer to him as. This guy has come in and not really had a great deal of game time. And that's because we've got to trust the process. Eddie Howe, Jason Tyndall and the coaching staff have showed us in seasons gone by that when they bring a young player in, they don't bed him in too early, unless they've got to, of course. And, they took their time with Tino Livramento. They took their time with Lewis Hall. Remember as well, they took their time with Bruno, despite the fact that they spend a lot of money on him. They didn't just put him into the team. They had to get him up to their standards, get him in an understanding of how to play. But in a recent interview, Jason Tyndall described William Osula as, it reminds me of a young Callum Wilson, which I think bodes well for the future. He's quick, he's got a good touch, and he's clearly got a good finish. When will it be unleashed? Maybe next season. Again, I've seen people suggest that William Osula could probably move on, Joe. He could go on he could go out of the club, maybe a bit like Aston Villa did with their centre forward who they brought in and sold for a vast amount of money. Again, PSR is always in people's minds. I think Osula will stay, and I think we will see some more of him next year. Whether that's as a forward, whether it's as a right winger. Eddie may decide he's better on the wing. Who knows? But I think we all know we need another Isak to come in, somebody of a similar ilk. There's no question about that. To me, question about the centre forwards is twofold. I think we know that Alexander Isak will stay. He's got a 3-year deal. We're hoping he's going to sign a new one. Where do you see the future of Callum Wilson first and foremost? Do you think he'll stay? Do you think he'll go?
Hey, listen, Callum Wilson's been a fabulous servant for Newcastle United. His goals for games record's fabulous, Steve. And sometimes, your body just says, hey, we've had enough at this level. We can't quite match it anymore. And once you get a bad injury, it takes a hell of a lot of time. I mean, in my last year and a half, I had half a dozen operations, right? I didn't want to harp on about it, but every time you come back and you break down, as regarding your body breaks down. Yeah, not like EAMan or RAC. There's other companies that do breakdowns. But when you break down and you've got to do your rehab all over again, and you get to that point again, and then you're knocking on the door, and you're not getting in the team because you're not the flavour of the month. You're not that man. That you're quickly forgotten in football. You're very, very quickly, and nobody's going to take Isak's place off him. You know, he's up there. He's my best player in Europe. Simple as that. At his position, without a shadow of a doubt. And you know, I think Callum, when you've got the Ostlers, the Sulas, or as I call them, Will, which is a lot easier, when you got Will, right, you've got something that we brought him to the club for what, 20 million? I don't know what it was, around that, but we were buying him for the future. We're buying him to develop, you know. And yeah, I like him. I think he's got something different about him, you know. And if somebody like Jason Tindall, by the way, because like you said, he nurtured the likes of the young Callum Wilson because he had him at Bournemouth. And this is the thing, what he might say that we don't see. But Osler, he's got to play, he's got to, you know, develop and learn. And he's got to learn. And this is the other thing as well, where we've got to really, if Wilson goes, we've got to bring another forward in. Because when we're playing in Europe, Steve, you've got different formations that you play in Europe. You know, you're going to be playing sometimes some teams out there, the crackers, some of the teams I've watched in the European games, you know, they play either one up the front or 9 up front and 1 at the back. You know, it's amazing, some of the teams, that the strategies they come up against. So this is where your Willocks come into it. This is where your big Wills come into it. You know, and it's a different, and if it's a lesser team where you're enhancing, getting through to the, let's face it, we want to be getting to the latter stages of every competition. But in Europe, you know, you could be playing the dog and duck one week, you know, and then you're playing Real Madrid the next. You know, let's hope we're playing the dog and duck every week and we'll see Real Madrid in the final or Sunderland in the final if they get the chance to go to Europe. I've heard they're doing cheap flights. If you want to tell us something, lot, if you want to get them to Europe, they're doing cheap flights. Or you can buy one, get one free. Cheap flights if they want to get to Europe. Anyway.
I think we should finish with the Yasula song, Joe.
I never know how it guns.
Yasula.
That was superb, mate. Honestly, superb.
Thanks, mate. Great show. Not as good as your answers tonight, Joe. I know you were a bit nervous about doing it, but I tell you what, we smashed it, kid. Great show. As always, thank you everybody for watching.
I didn't like to dig players out, Steve, because at the end of the day, when you're a professional, the last thing you want is some has-been sitting on a chair, right, that I haven't paid for. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell them that I haven't paid for the chair yet, because they'll send the knockers, you know, them ones that knock. My mother used
I just can't believe you're calling me a has-been.
My mother used to say with them knockers, let the knockers knock, the paint lasts longer than the skin.
I love it. We'll leave it on that. Joe, take care. See you soon, mate.
Ciao.